Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Rich Sheehan will be back next week. He is, I think he's busy putting up signs, posting signs along the perimeter of his property, reminding people that there's no double standard, that everyone will be treated the same. No double standard for the top 7%. They're going to have to be treated the same way we are. So Rich Sheehan will be back next week. With us today is my very dear friend, and I don't use that term lightly, Steve Elkins. He's an ICU nurse. He's an ER nurse, and he has 27 years of experience. Welcome, Steve Elkins.
Hey, good morning, Vincent. I have to admit something. I gave you full credit. I'm not sure. We'll have to talk after the show's over what I owe you, but in compensation. But I did reinstitute my. I didn't say New Year's resolution, but I did say I'm going to up it again this year. But I'm going to increase my intolerance. And I gave you full credit for that on Sunday and on John's show last night, and John just loved that. Increase your intolerance. Push back real hard in 2020. Push back real hard.
Yeah, you're talking about John Statmiller, the owner of Republic Broadcasting Network. And I want to thank John because he takes USA Prepares, tape delayed, and rebroadcasts it the next day. So this broadcast will be available on Republic Broadcasting tomorrow at 6 a.m. through 8 a.m. Central Time. So we open the day for Republic Broadcasting. USA Prepares opens the day. See, if I sent you an email, and I didn't really want to talk about corruption, but there's some things that are just, I can't stand it. So I sent you version 5 of of this email, and I'd like to just read a message from the MPD, and this is from Chief Lawrence Batiste. He is the chief of police for Mobile, Alabama. And he says, the headline of this webpage for the police department, the Mobile Police Department, is making Mobile the safest city in America with respect for everyone. And there's a message from the chief. Welcome to our online home. Making Mobile, or Mobile, whichever you want to say it, the safest city in America with respect for everyone isn't just a slogan. It's a promise. We strive to keep our promise by providing fair and equal law enforcement to all citizens. Our commitment runs deep with innovations that focus on the safety of our community. We work with community panels to examine our tactics, making sure that they are acceptable to the neighborhoods we serve. We have mutual respect guidelines for citizens and police officers to follow, which are part of the training for new officers and in-the-field training for veteran officers. And we connect with youth programs and services that help them avoid involvement in criminal activity. That's just part of what he says. Sounds great, doesn't it? Well, here's the rest of the story. Fox10TV.com. MPD, Mobile Police Department, apologizes for viral homeless quilt. A social media post. So what these two officers did, who are not named, their identity is hidden. What these two guys did was they took cardboard box tops that were written in by hand, by people who are homeless, asking for things. And I can't read them because it's too small in the picture to read what these cardboard signs say. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's like 15 or 20 of these signs, all taped together with clear tape, and they call it a quilt. And these two cops are standing against a white wall, and they have the blue police flag. That's the flag that has the dark gray black American flag with the blue line running through it. You know, Blue Lives Matter, that kind of flag. And it says Mobile, Alabama. Social media post by Mobile police officers featuring a photo and text that says that some mock homeless people, as hence resulted in an apology by the chief of police. This photo was on Facebook. So the accompanying text to the post says, "Wanna." Now this is police speak for, it's in place of English. Here's what they say. Quote, "Wanna, W-A-N-N-A. Wanna wish everybody in the 4th Precinct a Merry Christmas, especially our captain. Hope you enjoy our homeless quilt. Sincerely, Panhandler Patrol," end quote. So, Steve, did you have a chance to look at any of that to see?
I did. I saw that last night when it came up on my pop-up. I saw it. It's pretty tasteless.
So these are the guys who say they're delivering on the promise, making Mobile the safest city in America with respect for anyone. What is your take on that? Do you have the same visceral reaction that I have?
You know, I saw that. I just thought it was tasteless, and I have seen over the years, and it's interesting because I've taken note of what panhandlers or the homeless have used for signs, different excuses. It's amazing what there's a certain feel that they want to put out on that little sign, that piece of cardboard, and tweak your heartstrings to open up your wallet. And I've seen the oddest things of people saying on their little boards that are holding their little boards. Usually there's always God bless, because they like to go after the religious because, well, they're pretty easy to get money out of sometimes, the religious people. Always say God bless, and if you also put on there you're a veteran, that seems to help quite a bit too. But when I saw that pop up yesterday, I thought, that's pretty tasteless, and that's uncalled for. And I'm not sure how many what kind of problem homelessness is in Mobile, Alabama. I mean, it's California. It's terrible, and it's just very insensitive. It's not. You've got a problem here, and I've talked about this before, because California, where I came from, has a huge problem. It's just growing leaps and bounds on the homeless. And Governor Gavin Newsom, I call him Gavin Newsom, is pointing the finger at Donald Trump. It's his fault why he has so many homeless. Well, Donald Trump's talking about the economy being so robust and so good. I don't believe that. I've talked about that before. But aside of that, he's blaming Donald Trump for something that is growing in his city, but forgetting that California is a sanctuary city, sanctuary state now. I first started with, I think, Santa Rosa, because I fought those people pretty hard at the town council, and they laughed at me, basically. I'm surprised I wasn't let out in handcuffs on this one. But I fought them, and I finally said, that's it. When they became a sanctuary city, and the state later on decided to become a sanctuary state, I knew that the time was over. I could not beat these people, and I had to retreat. Economic reasons, I decided to leave, sell at the high, and leave the state. But I think it shows no taste, a lack of character, a lot of things. Having a sign like that, it's not addressing their problem. And right now Donald Trump's having a little beef with Gavin Newsom. Newsom's blaming him, and Donald Trump's coming back, firing back, and saying, if you can't handle it because you're doing such a rotten job on the problem, it's growing, why don't you allow the feds come in? I'll come in and we'll clean that up. Well, we know what that means. That means throwing a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars at a problem they actually really have never dissected and figured out. Who are these people, Vincent? Who are these people? What are their conditions? Why are they homeless? Are they drug addicts? Are they mentally ill? Are they alcoholics? There are many, many stories of these people, why they are there. Nobody seems to know. Nobody seems to do their homework to find out why are these people there, what's their condition, what brought them there. And so, the typical government solution is throw money at a problem, and I have yet to find any examples where government throwing money at a problem has solved a problem. Creates commerce, it's that, and some people make a lot of money out of it, but it never solves the problem. And so bottom line is it was a tasteless act. Somebody should be called on the carpet for that. I'm not sure how far to take that, but it was a no-class move.
Okay, a couple comments. Government, you're right, they throw money at what appears to be a problem. But that's not the first thing they do. The first thing they do is they hire consultants to study the problem. So they throw money toward consultants.
Right.
Yes, task force, committees, hire consultants, out-of-town type consultants. And I was one of those guys. I was a consultant for government, city government and state government, and let's see,
did they listen
and county governments.
Did they listen to you?
I really was.
Did they listen to you?
Yes, absolutely they did. And everything that I recommended, they implemented, every single thing. But that was almost 30 years ago. When government was different. Government wasn't trying to line their pockets as much. They had real problems, and they wanted real solutions. And I provided real solutions. I mean, I literally built systems to solve the problems. I didn't want to get into it, but, I did. So when we talk about government, first of all, they waste a lot of money. Now, government used to be populated by people who I think were hired to keep them off the street. People who really don't have a lot of initiative, people who don't really have a lot of inspiration to do things. They don't start things. They're just there to put in their time and retire. So, you put enough people like that together, they really don't want to do too much. They just want to get paid and retire. You mentioned the people who have these signs. We don't know who they are. We really don't. I mean, I have not spent the time to, park my car, walk 3 blocks to stand on the corner with them and talk to them. I have not done that. But I think I will. Now, if these guys are perpetrating fraud, if they've got, a nice SUV parked a block away and, they roll their wheelchair to their corner, the one that they've claimed, and then they sit in there and say, help a vet, 2 starving children, please help, God bless, praise the Lord. If they're earning $50,000 by begging and they're perpetrating a fraud, I think the cops could do something different. I think the cops could investigate. I think the cops could, if they find that they are perpetrating a fraud, arrest them, prosecute them.
Well, I've actually caught those before, Vincent.
And clean this up.
I've caught those before. I've caught those scam artists before.
And they should be arrested.
Somewhere else. Yeah, they should be. Correct.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what should the city be doing? Like Mobile, Alabama? They should be figuring out how to help the homeless. Okay? What is the problem? Is it education? I'll bet a lot of it's education. I'll bet a lot of it's marital strife. I'll bet a lot of it started with the Clintonistas when they sent the jobs to China. Steve Elkins, and I'll be right back. Steve Elkins is with us, and if you'd like to find him on Republic Broadcasting, you can go to republicbroadcasting.org, and you can look at the schedule. He's on Sundays from 7 to 9 p.m. in the evening, Central Time. So here's a thought for the Mobile, Alabama government. The cops are not named. The cops who perpetrated this failure to, or this breach of the public trust, they're not named. They need to be named because they're being paid with taxpayer money.
That's correct.
So name the cops, fire the cops, remove the police chief, the police training officer, the desk sergeant, the managing sergeant, and the cops who breached the public trust. Now, why do I say that? When I taught a class in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it was an elective. You did not have to take my class. Only those who wanted to. Just like no one has to be a cop. They elect to be a cop, and they're compensated for it. Well, in my class, my students had to wear the uniform. I provided the shirt. It was an embroidered shirt. And to match the shirt, they would wear khaki slacks, a belt and shoes, and the belt and shoes would match each other, and they'd be coordinated with the khaki slacks and the plum-colored, knitted, embroidered shirt that I provided. That was the uniform. Why? Because we were selling computers that were about $1,000. Lower than anybody else would provide them. We'd provide the training, and the students had to look, act, and be the part. I didn't want them with pants falling down, or pink hair, or blue hair, or green hair. They couldn't wear jewelry. It was very strict. And there was a code of conduct, and they signed it. They signed that they agreed to the code of conduct, just as I signed to agree to the terms of employment when I worked for companies and corporations and Fortune 100 types. I agreed to their terms. It was their show. I was a guest, right? A paid guest, a paid employee. Well, in this code of conduct that I wrote, and each student signed, along with the student's parents, they all signed it. Mom, dad, and the student, or the guardian and the student, or mom and the student, or dad and the student, or whoever it was that ran that household, that person and the student, and I all signed this agreement. And it said that the student would behave in accordance with our code of conduct in and outside of class. And if a student did something that was outside of our code of conduct, they would be terminated, removed, and thrown out of class. As simple as that. You violate good conduct, you violate good behavior, you shoplift at a store, you get caught, you're out. Even though it had nothing to do with the classroom activities per se. But what it did do is it tarnished the reputation of my class. Steve, your comments.
Yeah, there's a lot of times there's a moral clause. I know definitely teachers, they in education, they follow. There's a moral clause, and you have to you have to live by the clause. I mean, you can't you can't have a teacher who's teaching your children on the side on the weekends dancing at a strip bar. You know, there's a thing called moral clause, and that's what you're talking about there. And I agree with that 100%. We need to raise the bar. The problem is the bar is being lowered and lowered each year. If you've noticed, everything seems to go. There's a new philosophy out there. If it feels good, do it. And I'm a little tired of it. That's why I mentioned increase your intolerance. Now, the people that are forcing these agendas on us, they have a lot of moxie. And they have a lot of push, and they have a lot of money behind them. People like George Soros. But what I'm suggesting is that we need to triple the moxie that these people have and push back very, very hard. And it's not discriminating. It's simply trying to save America. It's save our culture, save our history. These people are trying to erase everything and rewrite history and to their liking. And they change the rules as they go along. They keep adding on more and more. And if you say yes to this, and there's a word that's been thrown around for many, many years, and I knew it was going to be a problem. I told people they would start on the churches. The word it begins with a T. It's called tolerance, and that's how they would break the ice with show some tolerance for other people and other ways and other lifestyles. I knew that was going to be an albatross around our necks because that lowers the standards.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Steve Elkins is with us, and we're going to be talking about medicine probably on the next hour. But, Steve, I'm looking at an American flag, and there's only one American flag. It's specific dimensions, and it's a rectangle. It has 50 stars that are white on a blue rectangular field. And then there are 13 stripes, red and white. And they relate and represent the 13 original colonies. That is the American flag, period. Period. Now, the police have their own versions of these flags. They have what looks to be an American flag with the stars and the stripes, except it's mostly black.
Yeah.
Where'd that come? where'd that come from? So the field where the stars populate, it's a black field with white stars. And then they're black and white stripes, except for one horizontal blue stripe in the middle. And it is joined on both sides by black stripes. So there's black stripes and a blue stripe is in the middle. Now there's another version of that, which is the American flag, which has stripes replaced with black, 2 black stripes and a blue stripe. And then there's another one that says duty, honor, courage, which is, the black field with the white stars and the blue line. And then there's another one that's all black except for a blue line. Then there's another one that is black and white, but has 1 red stripe and 1 blue stripe. So, and then there's another one with a skull. It's a blue line flag, black field with a skull. I wonder what that's supposed to mean. Then there's another one that's just like that has a canine footprint on it. Then there's some other ones that say police lives matter. There's another one that says blue lives matter. But these are what appear to be American flags, but they're black, mostly, with blue lines. Now, I object to that. To me, if this is a government corporation office, they can have, it's okay with me if they have the American flag, that's fine. If they want to have the state flag, that's fine. If they have a county flag, that's fine. If they have a city flag, that's fine. Period. That's it. But this particular police department has on the wall it looks like it's painted or it's a decal, the blue line flag on the wall. They're saying we're different, we're special. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because every 4th of July when I do my show, I talk about flag etiquette. And I can't tell you how many times I see a witness violations in the American flag of how you're supposed to present the American flag. It actually comes with your flag. If you buy a flag, it'll tell you proper flag etiquette. And I see it violated all the time, especially in sporting arenas when they drape themselves with the American flag over them. It's never supposed to touch the body. It's not supposed to be mixed with sweat. The symbol that we look up to, the American flag, is not being upheld, and nobody seems to be pointing a finger at proper flag etiquette. I see flags that are destroyed. They should be destroyed, and they're in tatters. It's amazing what I see. People wearing a shirt made out of a flag, underwear made out of flag. The flag is not taken serious as a symbol of this country, this great country. I see it all the time in violation. It flies all night. If it flies all night, it has to have actually lights on them to show the flag. There's just so many violations with the flag itself, and especially with the sporting people. I just get so angry when I see in the Olympics, and they're actually told not to do this, but they don't care. I don't know what's going on with the attitude of people, but you tell them these are the rules. You cannot take the flag. You cannot go around this. You can hold it up in the air on the pole to walk, to march around the stadium or to run with it, but you are not to take it and drape it over your shoulders or around you like a blanket. Forbidden, and people just don't seem to care, and there's nobody to enforce the rule of the standards of the flag itself. It's quite embarrassing. Just the other week or two ago, there was a guy who was thrown in prison for a hate crime for burning a gay flag, a rainbow flag. He's going to prison for 7 years, I think it is. But you can burn an American flag, and nobody seems to care about that. That's okay. That's freedom of speech. He burned a gay rainbow flag, and he goes to prison. We were talking about standards and morality here, and that the word tolerance has been chipping away. It was used to break down our defense and to lower our standards and to bring acceptability and things we normally wouldn't bring acceptability to. We'd say, no, I have my belief set, I have my morality, and I'm not going to cave on these things. So I predicted this long ago, Vincent, long ago. With Ellen DeGeneres, I said, when she got kicked off for coming out of the closet, she'll be back in the next 5, 6 years. She'll be stronger than ever. The movement will grow and grow and grow, and I was absolutely right. And looking at all the programming on TV, and that's exactly what it is, programming. Look at all the comedies you have there to break down your guard. Will and Grace, making my list here. I've got a list of stuff here. Big Bang Theory, Elton John, looking at entertainers, glamorizing the lifestyle to break down your defense. You got Elton John, you got Modern Family, Big Bang Theory, Will and Grace, all these gay comedies. And that's purposeful, very purposeful to break down your guard and bring more acceptability on something you normally wouldn't bring acceptability to.
Agreed. And so I'm going to use a word that I would not normally use, but I'm going to use it. And I looked it up. And it's the bastardization of the American flag. That's what this is. That's what this blue stripe flag is. To me, it says we're different from you guys, and you're going to listen to us. We're going to do whatever we want. And in Missouri, there's a law that is absolutely unacceptable. It is against the law to resist an illegal arrest in Missouri. Now think about that, class. That's one of the things that absolutely needs to be changed. So the police come and they say, you're under arrest. And you go, what? Now you've resisted arrest. So now they arrest you and you've resisted arrest. That's here in Missouri. So we have clothing, as you mentioned, shirts, ties, jackets, underwear, scarves, with the representation of the American flag, and it is absolutely wrong. Clothing should never represent the American flag. That's what I was taught, and I agree with that. It's absolutely wrong. Let's talk a little bit more about what these guys are doing. They are literally, did they all chip in and buy that flag or have the guy painted on the wall? Did they use our money to do it or did they use theirs? I'm pretty sure they used ours.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about the thin blue line flag. Let's talk about this other problem. There was a guy who happened to be a cop in Kansas. And he went into McDonald's and he got a cup of coffee. He paid for it. So the article says. He paid for his cup of coffee, and then he claimed that the person who prepared his coffee wrote, starting with the letter F, and then 3 more letters, and then the word ING, and then the word pig on the side of the coffee cup. So he took a photo of it, and he blamed the vulgar message on his drive-through server. So the police chief was kind of frosted, but he said, in so many words, well, we can't blame McDonald's for, the corporation for what one server did. Can't do that. What's the real story? The real story is, quote, this is from dailymail.co.uk. The 23-year-old officer resigned on Monday after admitting to making up a story that McDonald's drive-thru employee wrote blanking pig on his coffee cup. The officer claimed he received the cup with the expletive written on it as he went through the McDonald's drive-thru in Junction City, Kansas on Saturday. His outraged Harrington Police Chief Brian Hornaday immediately took to Facebook to slam McDonald's and demand that McDonald's take action. McDonald's disputed the allegations and revealed on Monday that they had security video that proved none of the employees wrote the words effing pig.
Yep.
The police chief, who has since deleted his Facebook post, later backtracked and confirmed that the officer lied about the entire incident. He called it a black eye on law enforcement and also called the incident an obvious violation of the public's trust. Now, has that cop been fired? I don't think so. Why not? Has the police chief been fired? Why not? Has the mayor resigned? Why not? Has the training officer been fired? Why not? So here we're told, if you're ever in trouble, you go see these guys in blue. Well, they're not in blue anymore. They're in black. And that is the field of the thin line blue flag, black. Who are these people? In the 1930s, there were a bunch of guys that wore black uniforms, and they had death head skulls on them. And they were led by a ruthless criminal by the name of Heinrich Himmler, with an H. Yeah. And what'd they do? They beat people up and killed them. Ruthless. Is that what we're trying to emulate? Is that what these guys are doing? So this particular cop, what does he have on? Well, he's a pretty big boy. The police chief, they show a picture of the police chief, and he's an imposing guy. He's got a hoodie sweatshirt, the kind that black people are not supposed to wear. He's got one of those on, and it has the blue line flag. Yeah, right over the heart, And then he has a hat with the blue line flag. That's the police chief. Any comments, Steve?
Yeah, the question I have, the guy who actually wrote that on his own cup, and that's like what Jesse Smollett did, claimed to be race hate crimes. Was he black, by chance? Just curious.
The cop? I don't know.
I'm just curious.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because I see a hand of someone holding this cup, and the hand is white. But you don't see any more than that.
Is that it seems that when people of color do stuff like this, they play the race card and they keep their jobs. That's the reason I wonder if he still has his job. It's probably because he's playing the race card. Even though he did it himself, he somehow has used the race card to keep his job, and he should be fired. No doubt about it. He should totally be fired. And prosecuted. Not only fired, but prosecuted.
Right. He damaged the reputation of McDonald's. Now, when we come back, let's talk about, let's hypothesize. So what would happen if it weren't found out by McDonald's security tape that the employees didn't do this? The cop must have done it on his own, okay? So what would happen if the cops believed that this was perpetrated by a McDonald's employee? I'm talking about the thin blue line. And so what I see in front of me is a picture, an image on the internet. If you want to see it, dailymail.co.uk. And so the Kansas police officer has resigned, admitting to making up the story that a McDonald's drive-thru employee wrote the word blanking police on his coffee cup. And if you look at the picture, you'll see this guy holding the coffee cup, and most of the image, I would say a good 75%, not 70% of the image, is this coffee cup with the words on it, blanking pig. Okay, and then in the background is a rolly chair. Not the kind that you'd buy for your house because it looks too expensive. And the floor is a hard surface floor, so that the rolling casters on this chair could slide around, and you see what looks like government-style cabinetry. So it looks like the picture was taken in a police station or a police department or an office of the police. So the guy who fabricated this story said it was a joke. It was a joke. And, and the officer is not expected to face criminal charges. Why? And here's, Steve, tell me if you think that this might make sense. So outside that McDonald's, let's say it was believed by the police and the general GDP that McDonald's actually had one of their employees write that on the cup. Okay? Do you think that it'd be possible that the police department would set up, radar in front of the McDonald's so people would say, geez, let me get out of here. I don't want to slow down. I don't want to go to McDonald's. I want to get out of here and, drive customers away from McDonald's. Do you think that's possible? I do.
Oh, I'm sure they would drive away. But, I'm glad you mentioned this because there's another strategy here also. Now, this may not be that case, but it could be. But, and I've seen it with restaurants. It's called it's basically corporate sabotage. And I've seen it with restaurants where somebody will go in and put something in and taint the lettuce or something with E. coli or something. And then you got looks like there's a pattern of bacteria, E. coli in the salad bar or this and that, and then they sue, or basically they hold it over the head of the restaurant, basically of the corporation, to get a payoff, or they drive down the stock price through this incident that they actually created themselves drive down the stock price, and then there's somebody on the other end who's buying up all the stock that's going to rebound in some. If it's a strong corporation, it'll rebound at some point, but the profits will be huge. It's a corporate sabotage type situation. Yeah. Not that this one was. Flags. This one here was. There was an agenda here, and there's nothing funny about that. He had a mission. He had a goal of doing something. I don't know what it was. Creating some division between the people. I assume for a motive for something he had planned in that area. But if why he wasn't fired is beyond me.
Well, it says he resigned. It says he resigned. So he probably was told, you got 3 seconds. Okay. You want to be fired or do you want to resign? Pick one.
Got
two,
it. Well, they shouldn't even give him that. He shouldn't get the resignation because then he can go somewhere else and start over. He should have that on his record, being fired for it.
Okay.
And prosecuted.
So here's another story. So headline, Zero Hedge. City tells church it will lose religious designation because it shelters homeless people. Earlier this week, on Christmas Eve, an order from the city of Cleveland was posted on the door of Denison Avenue United Church of Christ, demanding that they kick out homeless people that they've been allowing to sleep on their property or face losing their status with the city as a religious organization. Okay? So here we have a church picking up the slack, trying to help people who are homeless, letting them sleep there, and the city says, you're going to have to kick them out or you're going to lose your status with the city, tax exempt, right? Okay, right. So who's the mayor? Well, his name is Mayor Jackson. I called him yesterday, and it seemed like nobody was home. Nobody was home at City Hall in Cleveland, so I just called during the break, and I got a gal, and she was all bubbly and happy until I said, you know about this story? She said, no. I said, well, I'd like to talk to the mayor. Okay, I can. She was taken aback by the fact. I said, I'm going to talk about this on the radio, and I'd like Mayor Jackson to come on the air with me and talk about this. It's like they know they're going to get a black eye. They know. They heard it in my voice. I was very calm. I let them know that we're going to go far and wide with this. And so Mayor Jackson, he's the mayor of Cleveland, and in his city. Well, under his administration. He probably thinks it's his city. It's their city. But he wants to kick the homeless out of this church. Now, it's not up to him. But what he said, he used the fire department. That's the new thing. Use the fire department. And they say, well, geez, you're going to need to update the building and you're going to need to get the required permits and licenses and, to designate this as a homeless shelter. Why? No, it's not a homeless shelter. It's a church that is taking care of the homeless right now.
Exactly. Right.
I can't stand what government has done, and this is what made America lousy.
I agree.
We've got a caller on hold, and so Jason, if you could answer the call, I'd appreciate it. And Steve and I are going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of medical questions that I have. And if you'd like to ask some of Steve, feel free to give us a call. And that number is 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And what are some of these questions? Treating ulcer wounds, silver-infused bandages, the importance of iodine. What do fingernails tell us, when they're brittle? Why did doctors look into our eyes and our eyelids? What's the most common but serious disease that can be easily prevented? And have you seen cancer clusters? We'll be right back. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Steve Elkins is with us. We're going to be talking about medicine. Just want to give you a quick update. As promised on Thursday, Doc Ram, Ricky Rocket, and I will be talking about how people don't pay attention to radio. Doublespeak, newspeak, Orwell speak. That's Thursday. Just want to let you know. And David in Illinois, thank you for waiting so long on hold.
I feel bad that I was going to go back a little bit. Is that okay?
Sure. If I were a betting man during hour number 1, if I were a betting man, but I'm not, I would have put a substantial bet on you calling today. Seriously?
I do have a question at the end I would like to ask Mr. Elkins, if that's okay. But first, you were talking about this officer and what they were doing, and what I've witnessed and seen in that situation, being around the several badges I've been around, is they must have been, maybe they have a budgetary issue they're trying to deal with, so they're trying to spread like there's a discourse in the community. So when they do heat up whatever they plan to do, they can argue and say, well, it's our word against theirs. We have negative views in the community, and they're just coming up with excuses to explain it. We're just trying to do our job. And in those camera situations, you remember hearing all the cameras when they were giving out the cameras, and the police, every once in a while you hear them saying how they love the opportunity. When they weren't on the news, they were arguing like nuts, hating those cameras. That's why they demanded to have the ability to turn them off.
Yeah. Well, there's another component to that. And so the cameras are relatively inexpensive, but where do you put all that data? Miles and mountains and, gallons, or however you want to measure it. It's huge. So the data is stored by a company, and they make the money storing ad infinitum, forever, the data, so that when you go to court after you've just gotten your license and you get pulled over by the police and you end up in court and they say to this young girl, do you have an anger management problem? Have you ever threatened anybody? Have you ever threatened to kill somebody? No. Well, we have this text from you that says that you wanted to kill Bobby, who was in school with you 5 years ago. And the text is to your friend, your girlfriend, and it says you wanted to kill him. Now, this is just, two stupid, children talking, but, this data is collected forever. So if you think that the camera data is not collected, if you think that you're walking around the Chinese factory outlet privately, you're mistaken. I'm not talking about you, David. I'm talking about anyone who's paying attention to us. You are under surveillance. George Orwell wouldn't believe the amount of surveillance that we are under right now.
When he told me they just viewed a storage facility for data, and he was telling me this was federal government control, he said he couldn't believe. He said you would love being there to see all these servers. This place was as big as a football field, and they knew it. Everything we do is watched.
Is he talking about Utah? I drove past that.
He wouldn't tell me where it was. The only thing he told me, certain things he would not. He said, if I don't tell you, that means it's too much heat on me. And he would tell me, we're telling you this stuff to keep you under control and make sure you don't go to court, not to put us 6 foot under. And that was his statements about why he wouldn't tell me certain things. But they told me and showed me a whole lot.
The reason that nuclear reactors are put along large bodies of water is so that the water can be used to cool the reactors. Okay, it's a lot tougher to cool down heat with air than it is with water. And the data center that I'm talking about has so many computers, so many processors, so many sticks of memory, these servers do, that it's water cooled because it can't cool it with air. And they're certainly not going to put it in Arizona or New Mexico because it's too hot there. They've got to find a nice
close
cool
to water
location.
because when he seen it and he was explaining it to me, he was at stationed at federal law enforcement training. It was a technical training facility in the Georgia area. I actually had a teddy bear he sent me and it had the bluish black T-shirt with the federal badge over the chest when he was there. I don't even think I should have known all the stuff they were telling me there. So.
And Class 1, David uses the word he. He's talking about his father. David, is there anything else you wanted to share? Do you have any medical questions for Steve?
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to ask him, since he was on the ground there in California, I just seen a documentary this last weekend about the homeless in California. Now, the thing I had an issue about, a lot of the homeless people they interviewed, these people have RVs, they're parking places, and they're doing it to get a spiritual awareness. I don't particularly think they showed the actual true problem, because to me, these people weren't living rough. I mean, they were enjoying waking up and seeing the beach property and the lake, and I heard stories about people living in tents and all over the place, but these people were living pretty darn nice. And they, you know, is there two different problems there? I've never been there.
Actually, David, I can address that because I live there, and I can tell you, yeah, you've got that group of homeless. They're really not all that homeless. They have a home. They have motorhomes. They park along the roads. They find places to park their motorhomes temporarily until the police chase them off. I saw a lot of that. And but I saw also the other side of it, people camping along the river that had nothing, the shopping carts, pushing the shopping carts, a lot of that in California. And what is really interesting is that California doesn't even know how to address this problem. It's getting so bad. And I showed, we showed plenty of videos on RBN of riding around this guy on a little bicycle there with a GoPro camera on and riding through the longest homeless camp I've ever seen in my life. That was in actually Anaheim. And I never saw really much of any homelessness at all in Santa Rosa when I lived there. But 10 years after that, leaving there 10 years later, it was a huge problem. People living under bridges, camps under the bridge. It was amazing. It just like overnight, boom, in 10 years, actually just boom, there it was. And they're not addressing the problem. They don't even have a clue. Like I said, they haven't broken it down. And if they certainly don't have the task force that Vinny was on, because they'd know what the problem is and have some solutions set up or something in line to fix some of this problem. And they haven't done that. Throwing money at a problem has never solved a problem, and we know that's probably what's going to happen here. The Fed will step in and throw a bunch of money at California, billions and billions of tax dollars, our tax dollars, and what's going to happen is that Gavin Newsom will probably take that money and pay down his own debt for allowing his state to become a sanctuary city, because that is killing that state. All the expenses, the health care, the education, the home, and taking care of all the subsidies for the illegals is killing that state. That great state that I loved, didn't want to leave, is killing that state. So he'll take the money and he'll pay down the debt, and you'll still have the same problem you have, and growing and growing and growing with the homelessness. It's amazing. Amazing.
Steve, I have a question. One second, Dave. I have a question for you, Steve. So you've lived in both locations. Let's talk about a typical home in California. What would it cost in California, and what would it cost in Florida? Because you're living in Florida now, so you've had experience with both. What would it be? Because I believe that's a big part of the problem. It's unaffordable. The weather's nice, but it's unaffordable in California. What would a nice? I'm not talking about a mansion. I'm not talking about where the Kardashians, love to take selfies. I'm talking about just a house that most people would say, this is nice, and one just like that in Florida. What would be the difference in price?
Well, a big difference, big difference. I can tell you my neighborhood was a nice neighborhood in California called Ventana. Average price, home price in that area there would be, at the height of the market, would be about $800,000. Nearly every home in there is at least $800,000, or maybe up to $950,000. Okay, that same home, that same square footage home, down here in Florida, would go for, and you get some land with it because you don't get the land there. That $750,000 home there would cost you about $350,000 here. About $350,000 will get you that same square footage of home and a couple acres with it.
So you're actually talking about a half to a third of the price in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that that's part of the problem, because I know what David was talking about, these RVs. There are people who work in these Silicon Valley jobs where they're making a couple $100,000 a year, and they can't afford a house. They can't afford one of those $800,000 houses. So they buy an RV and they park it on the street. And then the problem is the people who have the homes on those streets are sick of looking at RVs parked in their, just on the other side of the curb. So they look out the front window and there's like a line of RVs. It's like a convention. And they're sick of it. And I don't blame them. I really don't blame them.
I don't blame you. There's kind of a pushback right now. It's really strange what's going on there. It's like the homeless population is all unified together on this, but they've provided them porta potties, all these different things, so they don't defecate on the street, and they're not using them. It's almost like a blackmail type situation going on there in San Francisco. They are losing millions and millions of dollars, San Francisco, as a resource center or a conference center for different corporations. They all have their big conventions there. They're not anymore because of the problem that's so bad with the streets and the defecation on the streets. It's amazing. You've provided the materials, you've provided the facilities, and then they're not using them. There's something really interesting going on with that. Mm-hmm. I can't figure out what's going on. They're wanting more and more. I have no clue, but if you offer it to them and they refuse it, they're sending you a message, and I'm not sure what that message is. It's got to be financial. They want something, and they're going to make a mess of it until you give them what they want. But they haven't stated any terms yet. But it's kind of obvious the plan, but I just can't figure out what it is yet. David, any final thoughts in the remaining seconds of the segment?
Yeah, this is a medical question for him. This is my opinion. I want to know his opinion about this. Do you think with all the massive feces and urine and bacteria and viruses that are basically becoming a cesspool there, that is where we have the biggest concern of our next outbreak coming from? Well, yeah. In my opinion, I think it is.
It's definitely the perfect medium, to come out with some new health crisis, and a new scare, and maybe even a pharmaceutical stepping up and giving a new vaccine and telling everybody you should probably have this. Hepatitis A is big on the rise there. Yeah, anytime you defecate, you on the street and urinate and use it as a toilet, you're going to start having all kinds of problems. I mean, not only on top of that, and I got to say San Francisco is the only city that I've ever been to where the restaurant owners sweep everything and spray it out on the street into the gutter, going into your water supply. I've never seen it. It's especially in Chinatown. It's pretty amazing to see all that. But you're right. It's the perfect medium right now for a new crisis, a new health scare crisis, no doubt about it. David, thank you so much for calling. Steve Elkins is with us. He's an ER nurse and an ICU nurse, 27 years of experience. And, we were talking about some of the massive problems that we were encountering. So, class, the reason we did that was to just tell you there's nobody to call. Unless you have friends that are close to you in trust, there's nobody to call. The point is, can you call the mayor of Cleveland? Can you call the police to help you? Can you say, look, I need a place to live. I don't have any money. Can you do that? The answer is they're going to kick you out. And some places are freezing cold. It's terrible. Steve, have you seen cancer clusters, whether it be from electromagnetic frequencies, in school systems, where they have an elementary school right next to a tower? I have not. I've always been wary of people that live under those big high-powered wires, and heard stories that I guess there was some research done saying that there's a higher incidence of certain kinds of cancer, but I do not have any experience to say yes or no for that. But I would just by common sense and assumption, and believe that with all that high power voltage and all that RF, that is not good on the cell level. So it would be a terrible thing. I wouldn't want to live under power lines. Okay. So, class, if you want to know for yourself, you can look at a lot of schools, and then you'll see power lines. And it seems like they say, where's a good place to put that school? Oh, there's some power lines. Let's put it right under there. Well, if you take one of those long fluorescent tubes, let's say a 4-footer or an 8-footer, just make sure you don't break it on the way for your little test here. Carefully take that, and they're fragile, and they have mercury in them, and it's toxic, so be really careful with them. But if you go under a power line, these high voltage power lines with the steel type that are tall and they've got a lot of wires on them, and you hold that fluorescent tube in the same direction, parallel with the power lines, at night, you'll see it light up. It will light up. Now, if you think that, there must be a relationship between these power lines and lighting up this tube, whereas it doesn't light up, in other locations, then you'll realize that you are
in a massive electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
So you're probably
going to
I
can tell you one time, I can tell you one instance I did have traveling down a hill, and I didn't realize it, and then when I did realize it, it was interesting. I pulled at a stoplight here where I live, and I got a massive headache. Almost immediately, a massive headache came on. It was terrible. I looked off to the left of me, and there was a huge, huge cell phone tower. I kid you not. It was a terrible splitting headache. It just came on when I stopped at the stoplight there, and waited for about 3 minutes until the light changed. And then when I left and went down the hill, the headache started to go away. And by the time a mile down the road, it was gone completely, my headache. So I do believe those towers are causing some health concerns, big time.
Well, let me share a story with you. It wasn't something I planned to tell today on the air, but back in the early 90s, we had a computer manufacturing company in Virginia. And in the early days, a computer processor might be 16 megahertz. You know, the early ones were like 4 megahertz. So a new and improved model would be 16 megahertz, and they bumped up to 25 megahertz, then 33, then 50, then like 100, 333, 500, 800, 1,000. 1,000 would be a gigahertz, okay? Well, here's what I found out. We had a computer bench, and I was the guy who would load the software and test the computers and do the, diagnostics and build the networks. And so it was a family business. And so I had a workbench, and it was carpeted, and I could put 8 computers in a line. And these had metal cases. These weren't like these Dell computers that have plastic cases. These were metal cases. Why? Because when I built computers, I specified an all-metal case to keep the electromagnetic radiation down to the absolute minimum. While when I worked on loading software, I would have 8 computers in a row, and I would load software. And it would take hours and hours. I would take the covers off, and I'd feel the heat from them on the inside. And at 16 megahertz, no problem. 25 megahertz, no problem. When we got up to 800 megahertz, I got dizzy, confused, and had a splitting headache, and I couldn't remember where I was. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we come back. So, class, what I have is a little bit of anecdotal evidence. And so we had this computer bench, and I would load software. And I would have steps I would go through, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And it was really simple. I would do the same thing to the first computer, the second computer, the third computer. But when the computers were of a lower processor speed, there was no problem. But as the computers got faster and faster and faster, approaching 800 megahertz, then moving on to 1,000 megahertz, which is 1 gigahertz, which is, I believe, the speed that the brain operates, the electromagnetic radiation was confusing to me. And I'd forget what I was doing. I go, geez, did I can't remember. And so what I found out was if I put the cases back on, the covers back on, I was fine. But before I figured that out, I'd have to write myself notes. 1 note in front of each computer with a checklist. Okay, I did step 1, did step 2, and so forth. So what I found out was that I am really susceptible to microwave radiation, and I'm sure others are as well. And I learned that I could tell when I've gone through radar. Not like a radar detector where I could slam on the brakes if I were speeding, which I wouldn't be. But I knew when I went through radar. I could feel it, and I'd say to my wife, there's the police here. They got the radar. Or there's a microwave tower. Sure enough, over the hill, there was either the cop or the microwave tower. So you're absolutely positively correct. So that's why I live in the middle of nowhere, and I'm outraged about these 5G towers. I think they're going to kill us.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very concerned on that also. I had a guest on my show, a good year ago. He's kind of an expert in the field there, Eric Windheim, and Windheim EMF Solutions, if you ever want to check him out. Got a good website, a lot of information there. And, we're inviting a whole new crisis of problems, ailments, health history, health problems. No doubt about it. And the sad part about it is he was so, he went up to Sacramento and he took on these people. And Verizon, big Verizon, he actually came to a point where he said, I had to move. I was fearful of my life. I cannot stop these people. The greed, these people are going to get what they want, and they're going to take out people who educate. So we actually had to move away and move into the sticks to get away from most of that. But that's a big part of why they're trying to deforestation in Northern California is for the 5G.
Yeah, the leaves act as attenuators for the signal. The veins in the leaves, yeah, absolutely. And pine needles, yeah, a big problem, right? Yeah. Yeah, we had a neighbor who's no longer alive, and I was talking with him, and I said, he was dying of cancer. I said, y'all know that you've got a microwave tower right across the road. And he said, yeah, I gave my wife $500 to go bribe the guy to put up the tower to put it on our property instead of that property. He wanted it. He wanted it. He wanted that tower because it would give him $500 a month for like 20 years. And he was willing to do that. And that's what's going on. They're stupid. And they're willing to kill themselves. And I don't mind that so much. But I do mind that they're willing to kill us.
Yeah.
And when we bought class, here's a thing you need to do. And I probably need to do a class on how to find a location. There's things you need to look at. I'll put it on my list for things to talk about. Maybe Friday. I'm not sure. But you need to drive around. You need to look at the aerial maps. You need to type in antennasearch.com and put in your location, find how many antennas are transmitting and killing you. And, and by the way, you need to stop when you're looking for a house. You need to say, mind if I get a glass of water out of the faucet? And if it's lousy, it's going to be lousy for you too.
Yeah.
So what about water pollution? Have you seen in your ER or ICU results of water pollution or chemicals in the air? Or is there a cluster of factory workers? Have you seen any of those things to say, wow, y'all have the same uniform on? Is that
no?
Actually,
if I have seen anything as far as contamination, it would probably be with the homeless who live along the river. And of course, like I lived in California, the Russian River, it was used as a toilet. And the sad part about it is a lot of that water is being used to irrigate the vineyards and the crops. And California grows everything. So, all the fecal material in the river from the homeless people living it and using it as their toilet, bathing, and everything else is being used to irrigate your crops that we buy, and they ship all over the country. California does. So that and like what they call a traveler's diarrhea, dysentery, seen that from people who actually have drank the water from those rivers. Seen that a little bit, but nothing in uniform that's been organized. Nothing in uniform. Just the homeless coming in with their ailments.
I was wondering. If you get one of those calls from our dear friend John Statmiller, if he says, hey, I've got a couple hours, would you like it? I'd love to do a broadcast about these kinds of things with you on,
always. Yeah.
So let me know if you choose to do that, Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the most common but serious disease that you see in the hospital that can easily be prevented? What are people doing that's common that you might say, you could have prevented this if you didn't, and then fill in the blank? What would that be?
Well, that's a tough one to say, because I could go to a disease process or I could go to lifestyle. So I'm going to actually see if I can touch both. A big problem that I see in this country is diabetes is on the rise from lifestyle and eating too much of this and that, and which also, if with diabetes, will lead to heart disease and your eyes going and other problems, kidney failure and numerous other problems, all stemming from the fact that diabetes, that is something that is definitely concerning. A lot of diabetes out there, and of course, I guess, like I said, leading to other ailments and other problems, debilitating the person themselves. So that's one, diabetes, heart disease, after that, eyesight, kidneys, numerous other things, cholesterol levels. It's just lifestyle, that part of it. There is a concern also, I guess, in the hospital when you come in, and we talk about nosocomial infections. You come in with something and you stay, and you leave with, or you end up getting something else while you're in the hospital. Hand washing, you've got on the list, your hand washing is so huge. It's something that's very essential and something that's necessary to stop the transmission of the bacteria and the viruses. See a lot of people who don't do that correctly. And then they like to touch their face and their mouth and whatever. So, you're just transmitting what you've picked up on your hands into your system here. So I'd like to see more of that. I'd actually like to see a PSA, a public service announcement, from the government putting it out there that when the season comes on for the flu and it starts to become more prevalent, washing your hands. Show people how to wash your hands correctly. Soap and water, warm water, how long you have to do it, the proper technique to do it. And don't touch your face and your mouth and things like that. There's so many more things they could be doing as a PSA to keep people healthy, but then again, that kind of interrupts commerce. I walk around, this time of year, if I go anywhere, I'm touching things, this and that. We walk around, my wife and I, we walk around with the hand sanitizer. I have one in my pocket, she has one in her purse, and there's many times I'll just pull it out and I feel like my hands are dirty. Remember, don't touch your face, your nose, your mouth, and I just sanitize my hands right then and there. And we need to do more of that. Practice healthy lifestyle, Vincent. This is the bad season right now, the holiday season. People put on 10 pounds of weight from eating all the cookies, processed foods, just terrible diet, no exercise, not getting out, no sunshine. That's a vitamin D deficit. You definitely need vitamin C and vitamin D for your immune system. Just lifestyle. I mean, we could actually, if you think about it, Vincent, if we just change our lifestyle to a healthier lifestyle and restrict a lot of those things that we actually know are bad for us. I mean, you see people in the grocery store walking around turning over the labels to see what's in this product. Well, take some really serious concentration here and think about a healthy lifestyle. If you're caring about what's in the label here, then actually practice what you preach. Find healthy. Try to get away from processed. Get away from the sugar. The sugar is a perfect medium for bacteria and virus. I kid you not. It loves sugar. So this is the time of year. Close quarters, people all together. One gets a sniffle, one gets sick, everybody gets sick. But if you have a strong immune system, if you practice the right things and the right choices in your lifestyle, then you're actually going to have an immune system that can pretty much beat a lot of this stuff, and you won't get it. But, Americans, I got my flu shot. Well, what a stupid thing to do. So the virus changes, and you're getting last year's shot, and I love it when I see the percentages, and I preach the percentages, how bad they are. And if I had a grading scale, if I came home with a 47% on my paper, my math paper, I think I would be in some trouble. But 47% effectiveness for a vaccine is okay. It's the new passing grade, I guess. I've even seen it go down to 27%. So, 27%, that's a total flat F, and you're willing to put an F into your body? But those are the same people then that look at the labels on the back of the packages. So you're worried about what you ingest for toxin, but you're not worried about injecting toxin into your body. You need to point that out to people.
I think if I were to study the colors, just in a store like, the Chinese Factory Outlet or Sam's Club, and if I went down the candy aisle and compared the number of colors in brightly colored packaging, I would find more colors per unit, whatever the unit would be, than I would in the produce section.
Yeah.
And they have worked really hard to make cereals enticing. And when I go with Mrs. Finelli to, let's say, a supermarket, the Chinese Factory Outlet would be my favorite to do this. I read the boxes, and I go, can you help me read? These words are so big, so long, so many letters. Does this cause cancer?
If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be putting it in your body, Vincent.
Right.
If it's that long, probably not a good thing.
How, let me mention this. You're talking about touching your face. So you're pushing that shopping cart that, the last guy, used, and maybe he went to the men's room. And I got to tell you, people are in a big hurry. And I think the sinks and the towels and the dryers and the soap is in the way of people trying to get out of the restrooms. I see urine all over the floor. It looks like people are trying their best, to get most of the urine. Well, maybe not most, some of the urine in the urinals. But what I see is water on the floors around the toilets. It would be urine. And I don't see many people washing their hands. But the next thing they do is they grab the shopping cart. So they just did whatever they did in the restroom, then they touched the shopping cart. Now, I don't know that that's the shopping cart that I just got, but it probably was, or one like it. And I think you're absolutely right with the hand sanitizer. So now the question is, when that gal says to me, may I take your order if I were at a restaurant, and she rubs her nose, I got a little cut off by the end of segment there. And what I was saying, Steve, is that when I used to go to a restaurant, I would notice that, the waitress would come up and, to the family and say, may I take your order? And she'd rub her nose. And I'd say, no, you can't. We're leaving. And one day I was at the Olive Garden. I was in the Commonwealth of Virginia at the Olive Garden. And so we ordered the meal. It was the family. We ordered the meal, and the waitress brought it over. And I said, after we ordered, but before it was delivered, I went in to wash my hands. And I walked past the kitchen entrance, and they had those doors that swing open. They were open. And there was paper all over the floor. And I would say, if I underestimated, at least 100 pieces of paper on the floor. Tickets of here are the meals, and they would just throw them on the floor. The meal came. I came back from washing my hands, and the meal came, and I said to the waitress, I'd like to talk to the manager. The manager came over, and he said, how can I help you? And I said, would you come with me, please? I'd like to show you something. So we walked over, and I stood where I could see in the kitchen, where there was stuff all over the floor. It was wet. It was sloppy, paper. I mean, it was really terrible. And I said, well, so what do you think? He said, I'm so sorry. I said, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to eat what you just served. And I don't want anything else. I'm not eating here. I'm leaving. But I want you to see it. I want you to see what I saw. It's disgusting. And this is a commercial for the Olive Garden class, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, so, not uncommon. Not uncommon, Vincent. I think if we actually knew what was going on in the kitchens of most of these restaurants, we would never eat out at all. I don't eat out much. Very rare. I like cooking for myself, and I get better quality food, and I enjoy cooking. So, especially during this time of year, I mean, you're really taking a risk. The sick cook comes in and makes the food, and it goes out, and everybody in that restaurant is going to, be sick, come down with something. I mean, it's Russian roulette out there, especially this time of year. So, I guess the thing I would say is, if you do eat out, a couple months out of in the year here, during this flu season coming on here pretty soon, you might not want to eat out for the next couple months at all.
When I was growing up in the 1950s and 60s, I would visit my grandmother with, my parents. And when my grandmother cooked beef, she washed it in a solution of salt water. When she cooked chicken, she washed it, before cooking it. She'd put the pieces of chicken in salt water, and she'd wash it. And I never saw anybody else do that. That was a first for me. And she said, it's dirty. It's dirty. The butchers handle this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now,
you should also probably do that with your vegetables when you buy them. Same thing.
Yeah, how do you do it? And I'll tell, do you wash your vegetables? I mean, obviously you wash them, but do you do anything specific?
I'll actually put them in vinegar water and vinegar, and kind of try aggressively, rinse them. And then that's pretty much what I do.
That's exactly what I do. Class, so take a bowl and, first wash your hands, throw out the outer leaves, and then if it's lettuce, for example, then the lettuce that gets contaminated by touching other things. So you want to throw those away. I don't even give that to the chickens, and because we eat their eggs. So then what I do is with clean hands and a clean bowl and filtered water, I put the lettuce in the bowl. I tear it up by hand, and then that bowl has maybe a tablespoon of vinegar to, let's say, 10 ounces of water, or maybe a little bit more. So I actually cover the lettuce. And really what I do is I have a Rubbermaid storage container. You might put food in your refrigerator with a lid that doesn't leak. I'll put the lettuce in there with the water, and I'll shake it up. I'll leave it for a few minutes. Then I'll pour the water out, use the lid as a strainer, pour the water out, and then do it again. And then I rinse it several times with filtered water. It's a heck of a process. And I'm sure that every restaurant that you go to does exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah, right. Sure they do.
Yeah. They probably wash the lettuce in the sink.
Not. Yeah. True. Very true.
Right. Well, I had some tenants when I lived on the East Coast back in the 80s. And two of them worked at a high dollar restaurant. I mean, it was an exclusive restaurant. And one day they called me over, and I went over to they had a problem with the bathroom. It just kept running the toilet. So I went in there, and there was the neighborhood size of Vaseline. And it looked like somebody was in a real hurry because it was gouged, with these, I'm not kidding. And that, was a pretty quick cure for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've class, you need to have some tenants in order to see what the kitchen is like. And I've seen one of my tenants, make fried chicken. She poured, slid the dishes over, the dirty dishes in the bottom of the sink, put some flour in the bottom of the sink, and rolled the chicken in the flour in the sink. Oh, yeah. Wait, you're saying that's not how you do it?
No, not how I do it.
Steve, thanks so much for being with us. Steve Elkins.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it.
He's on RBN, Off the Beaten Path.